Hi there, this video is for my Equinox guild members for learning Reaver. Reaver is a very simple spec, as most people joke about and all that. I kind of think it's like Hero from Cleric. It's easy to quickly learn and run it and pull good numbers. It's a different story to actually master it. Especially on different fights, you need to change up your rotation just a little bit. So anyways, I have two Reaver specs. Reason for this is because of Estrode. Now the main Reaver spec is 6-1 Reaver, 7 Paragon, and 8 Tempest. So 6-1 Reaver, you just fill it all in, of course. 7 Paragon, we have 5 in damage of attacks that generate your attack points. And then points in weapon familiarity, which increases attack power and weapon damage. Points in Tempest, we have 5 in amped attack power and weapon damage increase, and then 3 in enhanced power, which is increasing damage of our non-physical attacks. So, the reason why also 8 in Tempest is we then get the buff in Power, which increases the damage of our ranged attacks by 5%. And normally with Paragon, because of a 3% crit buff that we get, but we get that anyways. So, for masteries, normally you're using Resonating Strikes, Soul Regeneration, Gladiator Combat Training, and the big one is Precision Strikes. This increases your dot length, so you definitely need to pick that up. And then normally Power Manipulation. There is some fights with like Xylas where you might want to take Power Variation instead. But otherwise your spec pretty much stays the same. You end up with 5 buffs here. 2 actually from Reaver, 2 from Tempest, and then the 1 from Paragon. Really, there's nothing that we use in Paragon or Tempest other than the buffs. Reaver has the long range, and because of 61 points, your attacks and all that with your Reaver abilities will be better than your Tempest one. So, to go over macros and some other abilities. Some people macro a lot more than I do for Reaver. I find that some people with the lazy macros, I actually pull better single target than them. So anyways, with using the Power Manipulation as your mastery, I have your Spam Attack, which just this Power Manipulation first to preload it, to then just spam Revenue Strike. Same with our AoE spam, same thing, Power Manipulation, then Rancid Cleave. Other thing I have though is for better double dodging, I have where normally I'll focus the boss, and to make sure that it stays up on the boss is I have it cast that focus for Shadow of Dread. This means that all I have to do is have the boss in my line of sight, and I'll be able to hit this button and my 4 dots will apply themselves to the boss or my focus target. Another macro I do have is for the dots. I have 2 different macros for these. One that is without Power Manipulation. So if I using a different mastery instead, I will use this macro, and then one that is with my Power Manipulation. So Flesh Rot, Necrotic Wounds, and Soul Sickness, those are 3 out of your 4 dots. 2 of them have a cooldown, Soul Sickness does not. So you can easily macro them together. The other one that does have a cooldown is called Dire Corruption, but the thing is if 2 of the mobs that you put Dire Corruption on are too close to each other, mobs only take damage from 1 Dire Corruption, and in fact it will pop off the second Dire Corruption as well. So I normally keep Dire Corruption up on the boss, and if something is far enough away, I'll put Dire Corruption singly as well onto another one. But that is something you need to watch for yourself. So other than that, Focus Interrupt, and I have the Snare to be cast at GTA-E. Now, for my Reaver things, you see all these different macros over here. This is for Estrode, that you need target macros for certain ones. I've done a few different runs where I had to pull in different named mobs, so that is the reason why I have so many. So before I go into looking at other abilities and stuff, I'll just quickly show you the Estrode spec. So with Estrode, pretty much is swap out Paragon for Warlord. The reason for this is you get Sergeant's Order. With the Warlord, you can put 5 points in Soldier's Might for increased strength, and then 2 points in Strength of Arms to get that attack power weapon damage. Again, the masteries are all the same. The only difference with this is that you get Sergeant's Order, as I said, which then you can target a specific mob and then pull it in with Sergeant's Order. And then after a few seconds, you target your second ad, pull it in with Sergeant's Order, third, fourth, fifth, depending on how many you need to pull in. Estrode normally has 5 warriors running this type of spec, so that way they can do pull-ins. Normally you pull in 4 if there's 5. If there's less warriors, you need to pull in more. There is specific mobs you don't want the boss to get, so this is more of a tier 2 spec. Otherwise it's pretty much the same. Now to just go back to my normal Reaver to show you. Both specs pretty much play the same, it's just get a little bit more crit chance, a little bit more damage out of this one overall. The other one is more of support in a way with doing the pull-ins. So for Reaver, as I always say with everything, is look over your talent points, see how things affect other things. Don't just always take the word of somebody, actually pay attention yourself. Now, you have Cloak of Death. This can sometimes remove you from combat depending on the fight, but also your dots have to be off all your targets for it to actually drop combat as well, because it's not like a feigned death where you can wait out the duration of your dots and then come back up. And it has a long cooldown of a minute 30, so sometimes you really want to watch out, especially with PvP, how to use that. PvE, don't really use it much. So you have your AoE builder, your single target builder, you have your 4 dots, Dire Corruption, Flesh Rot, Necrotic Wounds, and Soul Sickness. You have ability that applies all 4 dots onto one target. Then another thing is you have Explosive Infestation, and as well Infestation. You have your 2 finishers, AoE and single target, and Viral Stream. You have a little bit of shield. Really, it doesn't really do much compared to other classes and different spec shields. So don't macro it in, just use it when you know that you'll probably need a little bit more of help with if there's a lot of damage going on that will hit you. Plaguebringer, I'll just say this right now, there is talks that Plaguebringer will be changed sometime soon, but at the moment, unless you just need to double dot or something, it's just safe to normally have Plaguebringer toggled on. It is a toggle, so as you can see, you can just leave it on. Toggle it off though, depending on all sorts of fights. And the other thing is you have Shadow Warp. There's talk that this might change a little bit too, where it might not remove all the dots like the one talent says it will do. There's talks that kind of changed that because of the PvP whiners. The other change that might be coming is Viral Stream will no longer be able to channel on the move, that you might actually have to stay still. Not a big change, just changes on how some fights where you just have to make sure you stand still, which a lot of fights I normally do anyways. Fight style would probably, you might have to clip it if you use it at the wrong time, is Yarlek with the smashes, depending on the smash RNG. Glacial Maw, of course, you can't channel it well on the move with that Blizzard. Sikaron, a little bit. Istrode, Mordantix. Doesn't play a big thing for us warriors that know how to use it, and we figured it'd just be a slight change to our thing. For others, it could be a big learning curve. Anyways, as you might notice, I also have 3 other abilities on my bar here. I have Revenue Strike by itself, Rancid Cleave by itself, and my dot macro that does not have power manipulation in it. So when I change that mastery, I switch these into my spots where I have the normal macros. So AoE, pretty simple. There is a bonus if you have the Reaper's Crystal when you're doing AoE. It will improve your AoE abilities, of course. So for AoE, really, all you're really going to do is like Explosive Infestation. You do a hit, and then Shadow of Dread, and you just grab the finisher and build for the most part. As you can see, I'm tracking the dots here. 2 of the dots have a travel time, 2 of the dots apply instant direct corruption, and Flesh Rot applies Necrotic. So sickness takes a while. So normally you want to refresh something like at 2 seconds or so. You want to keep up Explosive Infestation all the time, pretty much. Faster increases your damage done. The only thing is why it's like the main target when you use one of the infestations, explosive or so gotta kind of watch that and force to be up as often as possible. And of course, I have my ACT running at the moment. So there's not a lot of fights where you're actually running AoE for boss fights. There's some of them, of course. But normally you're burning one thing, maybe double dotting on a lot of boss fights. There's a couple fights where you are AoEing, but later on will be single target. I do suggest you use the normal crystal instead of the Reaper crystal for that. But fight where there is a Strode, that one is mainly purely AoE, so Reaper's Crystal for that type of fight. Now to just kind of show the course here now. AoE. Now the other thing is that your Shadow of Dread with your Plague Wizard turned on only does up to 7 damage, so you have hitting 8 targets. There is more than 8 targets. You could apply the other dots and hit more targets than 8. If you're lucky with that already have your dots, you may be up to 16 targets with having your dots instead of 8. So you could kind of do that, depending on fights where there are more than 8 targets up at a time. Like with the Strode warriors, are normally doing the interrupts and on the Black Ghost, which we have to then watch out for Arc of Night. And during that time, normally is that I end up putting my single target dots, or well, with Plagueburger turned on, the dot macro I apply to my main target when I use Shadow of Dread to actually apply it to the boss. There's times where, 30 or so small black ghosts spawn, which you have to AoE down, and normally, as I said, it's over 30, so of course there's a lot more than 16 targets, so I tend to use Shadow of Dread plus my dot macro so I can get more dots up. There are fights where, of course, you might double dot, which is also why I have the dot macro. All that really does is that something like this, they're probably close enough where Shadow of Dread can probably just go, yes, you can hit the window, fall back, and get it. That's pretty much like Trip. Other than that, though, there might be other fights, thinking more like the one second boss in IGP. What you'll do with that is what I tend to do, because sometimes Shadow of Dread isn't back up when the ad spawns, and then normally gets pulled away from the boss where your Shadow of Dread won't hit both targets. I actually just go into my single target, turn off Plaguebringer. What I end up doing is focus like the boss, cast my Shadow of Dread at focus, and when the second target comes out, I actually apply my dots to that one. See how I have my focus target here, watching that count down. So it's slow, I'll put my Shadow Dread back onto it. And just, keep up double dots. As I said, this is for, of course, when they're spread out a lot or pulled away from each other, because then your Shadow of Dread on one won't apply to the others with your Plaguebringer. So double dotting, I do that. Plus as well, really, Plaguebringer reduces damage of each dots, so that way more targets down, the less damage they do. Soon with the change, what will be that, though, is if you have it toggled on, all your dots will be reduced. Doesn't matter if it's on one target or not, and when you go single target, it'll hit the most. So for double dotting, soon that might be the best way to go about it to get the most damage, is don't have Plaguebringer turned on, and you just apply Shadow of Dread to one target and your dots to another target. Of course, AoE, it won't matter. You'll just have Plaguebringer turned on, of course, to do all the AoE. Now I kind of put up that kind of a rotation on the thing. Sometimes from one fight to another you might end up with more combo points, so you might want to change up the rotation otherwise, but I'll just kind of go over how I normally start a fight with 0 combo points. Normally I apply Shadow of Dread, then get my infestation up, finisher, Vile Stream until I get 15 points, use a finisher, I then use my Builder, Explosive Infestation, Finisher, Builder, low on my dots, so I was Shadow of Dread, Finisher, Builder, Infestation, Vile Stream back up, so I use that. Pretty much is, we use Shadow of Dread in place of Rents and Ravaging Strike, of course. Other than that is, you watch your Fester, which is what this K-alert on that one side was, and normally around 5 seconds, I found is the best time to apply Explosive or my Infestation to keep up Fester the most, get more DPS in, because Explosive or Infestation do damage as well. If you apply it at 6 seconds left, you might have to wait a second, or there'll be a second sometimes where you don't have Fester up on your target. 5 or 4, it seems to be, you'll have 100% uptime with Fester, and you'll squeeze in more Explosive, Infestation, and Infestations to get a little bit more damage. So all you gotta do is watch out for that, watch your K-alerts, and pretty much just go to town for DPS. Oh, I didn't change my crystal back. So crystal I normally use, though, is Slayer's crystal. Of course, as I said, the AoE crystal for when you have to AoE a lot. But that is Reaver, and hope you enjoy playing it. As I said, watch out for a couple of those changes. I kind of mentioned the ones that I've heard that are going to happen, or it sounds like they are going to be pushed into live. So you might have to change it up a little bit of how you play some stuff. The rotation, as I said, like starting with Shadow of Dread and then Infestation is normally those are your first two GCDs, which normally means you aren't getting them empowered by lava and flaring. I haven't noticed too much of a difference DPS-wise with holding off on using your Shadow of Dread and Infestation. But that's because your strikes do like very little of your damage overall. Most of your damage are coming from your dots, so holding them off sometimes for, lava and flaring, orchestra and flaring, sometimes your DPS is lower because of that I've noticed. It all depends on how well your con is and how fast they are doing that. Sikaron is another fight where your rotation will vary quite different. How I normally start that fight is first ability I actually use Explosive Infestation. I then use Shadow of Dread, spam my strikes and my finishers. Reason for this is because you want your big cooldowns to be up for the contracts. You want to time it as much as possible to hit things with when you have the contract buff on you. So doing Explosive Infestation first means that your hard-hitting infestation will normally happen when a contract is up, and also they normally say flaring and orchestra for when the contract happens. So biggest bang for your buck there, but for other fights, like as I said, that's the basic rotation that I've found to be the best DPS is Shadow of Dread first, and then Infestation. Reason for that also is you have a 1.5 second global cooldown. Infestation actually blows up after 2 seconds. So depending on the travel time between your two dots with Shadow of Dread, your two dots won't actually be on the boss when an infestation blows up. Infestation does more damage the more dots you have on the boss. So that's why I always use Shadow of Dread first and then Infestation. After that, though, is just make sure that your dots won't fall off before Infestation blows up. So sometimes hold off an Infestation in your rotation to make sure that your dots won't fall off when it blows up. I believe that's all really for Reaver here, so hope you learned a lot. Hope you have fun playing, and they're buffing some other Reavers, or other warrior specs, so watch out for those. As soon as I kind of learn them and see what they're all about, I'll hopefully write guides for you guys. Anyways, talk to you later. Until next time.